Hey guys, it's your favorite sisters with the Confessions of a Reluctant Caregiver podcast. On the show, you'll hear caregivers confessing the good, the bad, and the completely unexpected. You're guaranteed to relate, be inspired, leave with helpful tips and resources, and of course, laugh. Now, let's jump right in to today's guest confession. I really want to bust out
Right before we started recording, we were actually hitting each other.
Yeah.
It was like a sister slap.
What do you think it was a slap? Because people think that's impressive.
Oh, no, it was like a
now that hurt. You're
Oh,
going to leave it. Sorry, that was terrible. Hey, so we were telling our guest, who's awesome.
Yes, it's true.
We were telling her about us recording in the studio because now we're recording, of course, at PBS.
We're together.
We're together forever. I didn't sing in the first one.
Oh.
I don't know the words for that first part.
I can't see me loving nobody but you.
For all my life.
Okay, moving on.
Okay,
go ahead.
All right, well, we got to sing. There we go. Me and Stevie Nicks.
No, I don't know. That was a Partridge Family.
No.
And we're moving on. If a guest knows who that was, please text Natalie and let her know.
Yeah, please. All right, so anyway, we're here to talk about caregiving.
That is exactly right. That is the purpose of our podcast.
What a novel idea.
I know.
I am so excited because we have Tara with us. And I met her, gosh, it's been like months and months ago. And we've been wanting to get her on here. And it's perfect because now she gets to record in the PBS studio.
That's right.
And the guests are going to absolutely, this falls under relate, educate, inspire, laugh. We're going to hit every one of them today. I
believe that.
Tell everybody about Tara.
Tara, I'm super excited. Get ready. Because you got a great bio. I just love reading these. I'm like, whoa, look at this person. So today we have with us Tara Ross. She grew up in the San Francisco Bay Area. She met her husband, John, while in community college. He joined the Navy submarine service shortly after that. And she thought, safe. He's safe. No harm there.
He's underwater. Nobody can see him.
Hopefully, yes, that is correct, Tara. But everything changed in 2011 when John suffered a traumatic brain injury during a dive training, the training accident that would reshape their lives forever. What started as complaints of pain evolved into a maze of misdiagnoses. And I know that's the case for a lot of people not getting the correct answer. She learned that caregiving is often about being a detective and a lawyer.
I really like
as
that.
much as it is a nurse.
It's one of the 40 job descriptions from being a caregiver. I really liked that because I hadn't heard of being a lawyer or a detective. And those are very accurate job descriptions for caregiving.
The real education also came in healthcare advocacy. We know that's a huge part. Caregiver burnout hit her hard. She's open to share that. But her organizational skills, she's got some documents she's going to share with us.
We got some resources.
Her organizational systems helped create boundaries, allowing her to maintain a sense of identity beyond caregiving as a wife, a mother, and an individual. There was a turning point, and I love that this started with John. It started with the person that she cares for. It started with her husband. When they welcomed their second child in 2019, though, the story goes on because they moved to Ohio. Another caregiving. She's got so much stuff. We got to get started.
Like there's water in Ohio for sure.
I know. We got to get started.
Life changed, man. And this is a thing. I mean, caregiving evolved, but I'm not even going to give it away because I want Tara to talk about it.
Thank you for being with us.
Yeah, we got some golf claps there.
Yay!
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yay! Okay, so really excited to have you here to talk about your story because your caregiving experience has definitely ebbed and flowed, and it's gone in lots of different directions. And then what you did with it is definitely different. I don't think people are going to expect the end. Right? I don't know that they will expect what happened at the end. And I was like, you're smiling. You're like, nope.
I don't know. It'll be interesting.
I know, right? Because everybody's like, what happens? I'm like, you're going to have to wait. And so why don't you set us up? You're a California girl. I love that. You're beautiful like California.
It's true.
Like if you're not watching on YouTube, turn it on. And so that way you can be like, she's pretty. And I'm like, I know, right? And so talk about, kind of bring us up. So give me a background about what your childhood was, kind of feel like, bring us up to that piece, and then get us up to community college, you meet John, et cetera, and then when care starts. So give us some background.
So I born in the Bay Area. I grew up in San Francisco and also in Marin County. So I'd go over the Golden Gate Bridge a lot. Parents are divorced, but still really good friends. So I'm happy and thankful for that.
That's a blessing.
And yes, absolutely.
Were you an only child? I'm totally
Yes, I
interrupting
am.
Cal. Oh my
Yes,
God,
I am.
you're an only child. That's important.
It is.
Okay.
It is important.
It is. Keep going.
Yes, because my caregiver journey is not over. So
Preach, girl.
yeah, so I lived kind of all around. I have family all around the Bay Area, and at a point I was living in a small little town in Pacifica, and that's where I met John. And
So you were in community college. So you had
yes, I was in community college, working at a coffee shop.
Okay.
And he just came in, and I thought he was really cute.
Don't you love that when
and-
you're like, he's cute?
Yeah, and we did the little like, can I get your number? And I played, coy, and we did all that funny stuff. That's so stupid.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, it really is. I'm never doing that again. But yeah, so yeah, we met, we fell in love, and he was like, this isn't enough for me, and I have a history of my family being in the military, and I have family as well. My grandfather served. I had an uncle that served as well, and he's like, I really want to join. And I was like, what? Why would you do that? And he was like, no, it's going to be fun. I'm going to be in submarines. And I was like, okay, well, yeah, that sounds safe and
Okay, so
smart. And
and so let me ask you. I've got to be interrupting Cal here.
yeah, it's okay.
Like,
yeah.
So you were in community college. Were both of you guys in community college?
No, he was not. He
Okay.
was working with his brother and just kind of doing job to job, and just wasn't finding something that really suited him. So
Gotcha.
There's an 8-year gap between us both. And,
Oh, okay.
And
Okay.
So-
And so he'd been kind of searching and not really found a landing place. And you were
Yes.
you were in community college and you were working.
Yes.
And
Yes.
and so you guys started dating. How far into the dating process did he say, I think I'm going to join the Navy?
a year, probably.
Oh, so he got you on that one. We can all fake it for the first 6 months, but then once you're after 6 months, you feel like you're really into it.
Yeah, pretty much. I was like, damn it. I guess we got to do this with him. Yeah, I guess we're doing boot camp together. I guess we're doing all the things. Yeah.
Yeah. So then you start. And is there any requirements? Because this is the fun part of our episode. Are there any requirements you have to watch Top Gun? Are there any specific movies that really get you into the military mindset before you get in? Because you're a total civilian. There's us.
There's not. Well, yeah. Well, there's not many submarine movies.
No, it's not very exciting.
It's like Red October or something.
Yeah, then that's what was exciting.
Yeah.
And it's real tense. So the only one I guess I had reference to was Down Periscope, which was a nice, funny, wholesome, not
So you're thinking
scary.
John's going to be that.
Yeah, pretty much it looks so much fun on the call to these characters, and they're all smart, and when submarines get involved, it's either you don't hear about it or it's a big deal. So
exactly.
it's okay. So and it's in 2008 when he joined. So
it's post 9/11.
Yeah. So yes, it was still intense at that time, but it was just different. And of course, we were worrying about the economy at that point.
Right. That's the truth. That was before the economy crashed in 2009. That was total suckage.
Yeah. So there was talk about it, and there was intense and fear and all that stuff. So it was kind of let's do this for some type of security and some guidance. So he joined, and I followed him to Groton, Connecticut. And I was still, I knew what I wanted to do as a career. I wanted to be a graphic designer. So, and because I did community college, I had some credits, and I was like, okay, well, I have some credits, and, I have the ability to follow him since I don't have a full-time career or anything. And then we can, I can go to college wherever he goes, and, we'll figure it out. And so we did that journey together, and we were fortunate enough to come back to San Diego or California because there aren't that many bases when it comes to submarines. So our options are limited. And of course, during that time, since there were budget cuts and we were married at that time, we couldn't do something fun like Hawaii or Italy yet. So
That's a total bummer. I would have held out on the marriage and be like, it's really based on your face.
yes, I would have done that. We would have done that for sure. With that, we were in it. So so at that point, we're like, okay, we're gonna get some dogs, and we're gonna go to San Diego, and so we did that. And yeah, submarine life was very interesting. At the time, too, it was still all men. I don't know how many women are in submarines, but that was a big conversation while he was serving. And so, the ombudsman and all the family behind were all women and children. And so, I found a bond with them. And, when they would go underway for 6 months, we were able to gather together and talk and, somewhat have a life without them. And I think really in general, I think that's kind of where my caregiving really started, was being a Navy wife, being there to hold down the house while he's gone and help with when he comes home, to make sure that the house is calm, that he can sleep, because their hours were crazy, to help him get his bag together, to, do those things.
Isn't it interesting that you said that? It's the first time I've heard of it in the sense of put it like that. Like, I think my caregiving began because you cared for him. And some people would say, well, you cared as a wife. But I would kind of argue with you that you were caring for him to make sure that he was where he needed to be to serve.
Yeah. No, I believe that. I mean, I don't remember the book, and I meant to research it, but there was a book that was given to me while he was in studying in Groton, Connecticut, about like what a Navy wife kind of should do, what to expect, who to talk to, like learning about the ombudsman and all that stuff. So it was like a great kind of how-to kind of in a weird way, for better or for worse, honestly.
I like that.
It really kind of like set the stage of like what to expect, especially coming from a hippie background. And, might want to say, an anti-military. It wasn't for me, but I mean, they're known for not being very military friendly to some extent.
Yeah, because we're all peace, love, and peace, love.
Yeah.
Yeah, remember what the other word. I'm going to say laughter, but yeah, peace, love. Okay, so you guys, so it sounds like, life, you've settled in. You've settled into military life. You're back in Cali, and then what happens?
So, life is pretty good, and he wants to do more, and I am there to support him. And so he wants to be a diver on the submarine. So that means more school and more training. And a lot of exercising and a lot of long hours. And there was one day where he came home and he just was in a lot of more pain. And he told me that he was doing some training with some other divers. They had to like hold these cinder blocks and, do all these kind of like Navy SEAL type stuff, because that's, they have to get their body ready for that.
Right.
And he was helping one of his sailors. I guess he'd fallen or something, and he had to like help pick him up and help hold the cinder block, because they all had to like, do this obstacle course and have all the things with them at the end. And I guess at some point he had tripped and fallen, and the cinder block fell on his head. Wow. Fell down, and he was complaining at the time about his hips. So, we went home. I just thought maybe he just needed to just relax and recover, and the pain didn't really go away. And so we had to take him to the doctors, and they said it was a hernia. And so they were like, okay, we're going to set you up for surgery. We're going to get you an ultrasound. Let's get this started. And then when they did the ultrasound, they're like, we don't see anything. And we were like, what? What do you mean you don't see anything? And, they're like, poking and prodding. And then the surgeon was like, yeah, we're not doing surgery because it's not that. So you need to go get an MRI and we'll see you later. And long story short with that, he had a hip, they called it bilateral hip arthritis. But basically just the bones were, I guess, just, they weren't, ball and socket were not working correctly. So, and then there was some back spine problems in his lower back as well. So at that
John's
point,
a tall guy, isn't he?
Yes, he's 6'3". So
yeah, it made total sense to me when you said, I think I want to go on a submarine. I don't really think of 6'3". I think of like 5'6" and shorter. It's kind of tight quarters in the submarine. So
they do. I was fortunate enough to visit his sub, so I could see how small it was and how often he would have to bend down. And I mean, and sometimes he would come home with scars on his head from scraping it and hitting it.
Yeah.
So I think that also played a factor. And there's other couple times where he would hit his head, and normally they would just give him, some Tylenol or something and just call it a day.
Mm-hmm.
I really don't know why. I mean, I'm sure that there's a limit on height, but it really should be smaller because he's not the only one that would have hip and back pains after their service in submarines.
Yeah. Isn't that interesting?
But I also understand that, because of their special skills that, they kind of have to be okay with anybody who wants to do it. So
it is. And hold on one second, Tara, because this is a perfect place to take a break.
Well, alrighty then.
Because right now where we left off is it will be the hip issues and the back issues. So we'll be right back, and then we'll come right back in because there's more.
Personal. All right, everybody, we are back here with Tara Ross. So now we have started. So you've been a caregiver because you've taken care of your husband. You're a military spouse. You got a book. They gave you a book and everything. So in the bio in the caregiving story, you started talking about this path that you got on. There's loads of misdiagnosis. There's this path. You become a lawyer, a detective, all kinds of stuff. Let's talk about that and what's going on with you. So first of all, during this time, are you stay at home? Where are you at personally?
I was in college.
Okay.
So once he got his orders to, have a boat, and I knew we were going to be there for a couple of years, I was like, this is the perfect time for me to, finish up school. So I went to Art Institute of California, San Diego, and I got my degree there. So it was kind of perfect.
Yeah.
So while he was doing his thing underwater, I was going to school, and we had 2 dogs, so I was taking care of them. And I'm fortunate enough that I didn't have to work.
Yeah.
So it just allowed me to be full time, and so that was really great. Yeah.
So how did this unfold? No hernia. We find out about the arthritis, but how does this really start to unfold in this
going into caregiving?
It made me realize that all of our ideas of what we were planning to do in the future weren't going to happen. We at the time he was getting ready to re-enlist again because his contract was up. So we were talking about, how long do we want to stay and all of these things. And so, the plan was, I think, to do another 4 or 5 years. I don't remember how it is for him, but that was going to be the plan. And then once he got hurt, it's like, okay, we're not doing that. Okay, now what are we going to do? Okay, and also, like, where's your health at? Like, do you think that, like, you're going to be able to work after this? Or, like, what does that look like? What does, then we had to go through the whole process of, like, what does it look like to be medically discharged from the military, and what's the percentages, and like learning all of that kind of stuff that, we had no idea because this wasn't part of the plan. So
was the plan to be a lifer?
I don't know. Honestly, I don't know. I think a little bit, but it kind of we were going to do just kind of a play-by-play, like every time a student a contract, like let's kind of talk about it. Let's figure out where we are in life. Let's see if we have kids at that point. Let's see, how we're feeling. Are we burnt out? Are we, leveling up? Are we going to the places that we want to do? Is it serving us?
Right.
So I think that was kind of the idea, just kind of wing it.
I respect that.
Yeah.
It feels
I don't
good.
think he really wanted to be a lifer though, but I think he really enjoyed the camaraderie and the excitement and all of those things. So I think maybe to some extent he probably would have. But
So what happens here? So what happens that really pushes you in? Because I hear you saying, you're like, what are we going to do? Like, you all are in this place where you have to make a decision, re-up with an injury or exit. And what does an exit look like?
Yeah, we had to ask a lot of questions. We had to talk to a lot of people, both in the medical field of the military, as well as like JAGs and all the people that are involved with military exiting out. There's actually a lot of classes that go involved in that, whether it's medical discharge or just regular discharge of getting military ready for that. And so we took those classes. We did, just a lot of talking of like, what does that look like and where are we going to be? And because I was graduating as he was getting out, I was like, okay, well, now it's my turn. Now I get to, do my part. And that didn't really happen because then I got pregnant. with her first child. So I was like, okay. So, and then that threw a wrench in the thing, you know, as well. Cause then it's like, okay, now we have a child that we got to take care of. And, you know, what does, you know, insurance going to look like? And what is school going to look like? And we're at the, you know, so, you know, yeah, we did a lot of talking. We followed our plan, and we got out, and we were able to move back up north to where my family's at. And then the next thing happened. Then we had to deal with the VA, basically. So then we went through that whole process, talking to the DAV, talking to Champ VA, getting things service connected, because when you exit, they do an evaluation and they give you a percentage. And that part is pretty important. And I mean that in the sense that, like, once you leave, it sometimes can be very hard to have the VA acknowledge certain disabilities and then be service connected. So it's really important that during the exit part, or even just while you're still in the military, just say things. Say you have a headache. Say your back hurts. Just have it in the medical records, because later on you might find that that is important to a diagnosis in the future. So yeah, there's a lot of battling with the VA to get things service connected. And especially when it comes to things like TBI and PTSD, there's a lot of symptoms that are very similar. And at that time, 2012, 13, you know, there was talks about CTE. There was talks about, you know, specifically football players and brain injuries, like Junior Seau. And that kind of opened my eyes and his eyes as well as to the symptoms that he's having and how it could be affecting him. So we really had to battle a lot with TBI.
So did he have the diagnosis, or was this, you saw a lot of symptoms, you're talking to the doctors as you guys are starting to transition out to say, hey, these are things that are actively going on that need to be resolved, and they're just like, we don't see it.
Yeah. Well, or it was just based on the pain that he was having, you know, in his hips and his lower back. That was where, you know, they could see it in the x-rays. That's where, you know, a lot of his pain that he could talk about and, you know, verbally have a conversation about was from there. I mean, it's hard to talk about your brain and what's happening mentally if you can't really be aware of it, because there's no physical, currently, as far as I know, x-rays or MRIs that you can kind of see that stuff right now. So to talk about it and to acknowledge it can be really hard, and for them to, for the VA to acknowledge it as well. So that's where I really had to, again, be that detective, be that kind of lawyer, and talk about, give the evidence, because that's what they want. I mean, as much as I can yell and scream about, you know, he can't sleep, and, you know, all of these things that I'm experiencing as a caregiver, if there's not evidence, it's hard for them to believe it. So I had to create a system for myself to stay calm, to kind of take my emotions out of it, and kind of think like they're thinking, in the sense of, like, what evidence do we need? And then with that came, you know, a lot of trial and error. I mean, you know, opioids were the new craze as far as dealing with pain, and so, you know, we were trying to figure out how to, not only with medicine, but, you know, water aerobics and all of these other, you know, different programs that we could try and get him feeling more independent. You know, for me, more like the man I knew before all of this. And in some aspects it was working, but in a lot of aspects it wasn't. And at his worst, he was like 350 pounds, 315 pounds, and on 40 pills a day. And it was just too much. You know, during that journey, I, you know, found myself, you know, missing medications, forgetting to call, trying to figure out diets, trying to get him outside, trying to get him, you know, to do groceries with me. And, you know, I found myself being hypervigilant. I found myself having CPTSD, where I would be worried before something would happen. I'd be worried, you know, when we go to a restaurant or be in line and be worried that somebody's too close to him. And that was just not good for my health. It wasn't good for him. We were arguing about things that, I don't want to say weren't necessary, but it was clearly built up.
Yeah.
And, you know, a lot of animosity and not feeling like he was providing, I think, in the way that he wanted to, even though he absolutely was, but I know it wasn't the way he wanted to show up. So, you know, allowing him to make decisions and show up in the way that he wanted to was really hard, I think, for me to allow that, as well as for him to provide that in the way that he wanted to. And yeah, at its worst, he was like, I can't do this anymore. This isn't working. And I said, okay, well, what do you want to do? And he said, I want to get off the pills and I kind of want to start all over again. So he got off of everything. And that was a mess as well.
I bet it was.
The doctor saying, yeah, like this. Yeah, it was really rough. It was a different kind of rough. Watching him detox and learning about what that looks like, how to keep him safe. Because he was so determined, you know, he wanted to go like straight up cold turkey. I'm like, that's not a good idea. You know, like we need to talk to the doctor about this. Like, I know you don't feel comfortable, because he felt like they weren't helping him and getting him to trust and say, hey, you know, let's do this slowly. Let's cut it in half. Don't go cold turkey because that's not going to be good for your body.
Right.
And yeah, going through that journey, and he came out amazing. Physically, mentally, obviously the things were still a problem, as well as his hips and back. And of course, because he's so young, he didn't want to do surgery, which is absolutely fine. You know, a lot of surgery doctors saying, you know, to get hip surgery, that because he's so young, they weren't sure if his, the material would last long enough for the rest of his life. So, you know, he wanted to go as natural as possible, and I supported him on that. And
so during this process, were you still living in California? Was this before you guys moved to Ohio?
Yes. Yeah. So he was feeling so much better. He was able to walk without a wheelchair. You know, obviously the mental things were still there, but he was physically looking like, if not better in some ways than he did prior to being in the military. So there was, so that was really great. And that's when we had our second baby. So
Flashback for just 1 second. So I just want to, I'm like, okay, so all this is going on. I'm like, I hear you, I'm hypervigilant about food and I'm doing all this. So you really are caring, because you already have one child and you're really taking care of this husband. Like, and I hear about medications and we deal with that with our mom, all these medications and the impact of that. He says, I'm going to get clean. I just want all to come off all this. Was there ever like a time, like tell me about your emotions during this? Because that is a lot. This husband that you married is totally a different person. You're off of your plan for life. Was there ever a point when you were like, I'm done too. I'm leaving. Like I'm out. I'm checking out of this, because you mentioned caregiver burnouts. Like, did you get to that? I'm fried. I don't think I can do this anymore.
I don't know if I ever said I can't do it anymore, because that was just not an option, I guess. Like as long as he wanted to keep doing this, I wanted to keep doing this. So I think there were just times where I had talked to the caregiver coordinator, because I was a part of the caregiver coordinator program. You know, so that was great. Amazing, really, to have a nurse come to the home every 3 or 4 months, see how we're doing. And then I would get that would be like my me time, where I would talk about my things. So there would be times where a story that, you know, because we had 2 dogs, because my husband at that time was still not doing well, and of course we had a toddler at that time. We were living in an apartment, so that meant walking the dogs and picking up their poop, teaching a toddler how to potty train. And then he was having a hard time in the bathroom, so having to help him in the bathroom. And I was like, I am so tired of dealing with poop right now. Like I can't do this anymore. Yeah. Like I can't be in the bathroom anymore. I can't, the smell, like I was like, I can't do any of it anymore. Like normally it'd be fine, but like these past 2 weeks I'm going crazy.
Well, and Tara, you're a small person. Like you're helping, and I can tell you're small in stature. Like how tall are you?
5 feet.
So you're 5'3", your husband's 6'3", so you're a full head under the armpit. And so you're helping him, because you're sitting there talking about it, because you haven't, like, it's almost like high level skim the surface. Like you're working with him, I'm assuming, because I didn't realize was in a wheelchair at one point, and that
Yes, he was, yeah.
I'm assuming he's needing assistance with his what we call activities of daily living. So,
Yep.
bathing and making sure he's got all of his food, because he's in a place that he is just, because you said 40 pills, over 300 pounds. I'm sure he wasn't 300 when he went in. And I didn't think so. I figured he was kind of sinewy. And so you have all these side effects. And so your sole job feels like taking care of everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's accurate.
Yeah.
Were you taking care of yourself?
No, I was, but my thoughts at that time were is if they are okay, I'm okay. Once they're not okay, then I'm not okay. So that's where I based my regulation on. If he was cool, if he was sleeping, if he was happy, then that let me know that I could do the same.
Wow. That's true, though.
By the way, you're not supposed to do that.
No, you're supposed to be the thermostat. You need to regulate him as opposed to he regulating you. If you think about it. So I'm going to take a quick break because we're at a really good break point, and then we're going to keep going. Okay.
There's more.
There is more.
Okay.
We'll be right back.
Alrighty, everybody, we're back here with Tara Ross, and we've hit another point.
We're getting ready to move to Ohio.
I know.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's time to move to Ohio.
2019. You just had a second child, right?
Yeah. Yep. We in May.
Okay.
2019. And
John is detoxed,
during
so he's doing a little better physically.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, he's moving, he's grooving, he's enjoying things without me, and making decisions, and all of those things are great. And he wants to start, communicating more with other people. He calls his mom, says, "Hey, how's everything? I want to come visit," because we haven't seen them in like over a decade. They'd come see us. We never went out there, and he got some news that, after a year or two of surgery, back surgery for his father, that the recovery process is not going as planned. And that obviously was a trigger, and it hit home because he had been dealing with the same, with his own back and hip issues. And he was like, "We need to go home." And I said, okay. So with a 1 month
Cali
old
girl moves to Ohio with a
Yeah.
bunch of things.
Yeah. I mean, I had some experience with snow in Connecticut, but
Yeah.
different. So we moved, and originally it was just supposed to be, hey, we're going to be here for the summer. We got there, and it was a lot worse than we expected. And we decided we're going to maybe stay for the year. But then, because it's 2019,
Oh my gosh.
COVID happened.
Oh my gosh. So let me ask you this. So you've got 2 kids, 2 dogs, a husband that's on the mend. So you thought, it sounds like you thought, I'm transitioning out of caregiving, which I'm sure you didn't recognize yourself as a caregiver. You're just being the everything. And you're like an everything bagel. You got to love an everything bagel.
My favorite,
Yeah,
actually.
exactly. And so, of course, we love it. And so, because it's everything. But you go into a situation and you're like, caregiver antenna, I'm assuming, is like, oh, we got a caregiving mess over here. We're going to have to get these people straight.
Yep.
So then, and you guys are like, okay, it feels like a Gilligan's Island. I'm like, we thought it was a 3-day stint.
Yeah,
Boom.
we are marooned.
We are marooned on this one.
Yeah.
So, okay, so what happened? So you guys make the decision to say, we're going to stay longer. The longer turns into COVID. So what's going on at this time? Are you taking the lead in caregiving for his father at this point? Because dad has wife. And
and she was still working at the time. And she was a hairdresser. And also, like, not that they're ever going to listen to this, but I mean, he has brothers, and there's a good amount of family there, but they were all doing their own thing.
Right.
We had an opportunity to help in a way that others couldn't, or maybe didn't, or whatever. But like, we had an opportunity to be like, look, we can move. Other people cannot move. We have some income coming in where we can live with them if we need to, and help out in any way that we can. So, we were going to take that opportunity. And, it was nice to be around his family, because again, I never really did that. So to have such a big family with brothers, which is not something I'm used to because I'm an only child, and all these cousins, and to be called, auntie and all that, was great. So so when we got there, we realized it was a lot worse. Like, yeah, we need to stay. And we said it nicely because I don't think that they wanted to hear the baby of the family coming in and being like, we're taking over. So, I kind of let him take the lead. It's his family, his parents. So this was really my first time spending as much time as I did with them and learning them as people. I let him take the lead on it. And I just, because what was in the background, cleaning, doing the other
things.
Doing all the
I'll help.
Yeah. I'll do. Do you need to drive? Where are we going? What do you want to do? And obviously because it was COVID time, it was very, very stressful. And now we were in a multi-generational home where, I had one kid going to school. I had a, 1 or 2 year old and then some elderly people. So I became very, very hypervigilant at that point, making sure that everybody was safe, not knowing what COVID was, not knowing how it affected people, how it would affect them. So I really shut myself in. Everybody else had their own priorities, but I knew that I could stay in because I didn't have a job outside of the home. And, the mother-in-law still needed to work and my husband still wanted to go to the gym. So those were like our one thing outs. I would go to the grocery store. That was my one thing out. But I really shut myself in, and that did not work in my favor.
Yeah.
As the father-in-law's health was getting worse. He had fallen while we were living there. And again, thank goodness that we were there because I don't think anybody else would have heard it. And him falling caused a ripple effect of other health concerns happening. And as much as we did our best to make sure that he was happy and healthy, he did pass away. And again, happy to have been there for the mother-in-law at the time, because I don't know if she could have handled working and taking care of her husband in the way that she wanted to. Yeah. And then a couple months after he had passed, her cancer came back. She had kidney cancer. And, she'd been complaining of back pain prior to all of the, to us being there and not realizing that was actually a sign for her cancer coming back. So it had gone up her spine and up to her brain. And, at that point, again, being an observer and not having siblings, but understanding the patriarchy and the matriarchy of families, things really fell apart when the father died. And all the brothers, all the sons felt like they needed to step up in ways that did or did not work. And there's a lot of curiosity, we'll say, as to why we were there. Because I don't know if the mother-in-law made it clear why we were there. We had said maybe with some financial things, and that's not necessarily a lie, because living with parents, you get to save money, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But they made it seem as though we were there for something else. Oh. And things got real weird. And because the dynamics and relationships aren't all that great, as well as other things, John didn't want to do it anymore. And what I mean by that is, like, he didn't want to be in his mom's house. He didn't necessarily care for me at that point or his kids. And so he just kind of left.
Wow. Let me ask you this. Let me ask you this. So John left.
Yeah.
He's in the middle of this turmoil, really. Yeah. I mean, what you're describing after the patriarch kind of passes, or the matriarch, doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Can happen, right?
Yeah.
Did you see, was John pulling away? Was it completely a surprise to you? Was it?
We had obviously had discussions about what was happening and how people were reacting, mm-hmm. and how we were going to react. But it seemed as though at the end of the day, John and his mom were not on the same page. And that's what needed to happen for this to continue on. And I don't believe that his mom was being honest about herself. I mean, then again, that's kind of where my care sheets really came into play when I was caring for her, because after he left, I was still in the home. So I was caring for her as well as trying to care for myself and the kids and the dogs.
So he leaves. He checks out.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, and this is the most interesting part. I don't think we've ever heard anything like this in the sense of you're caring for non-related family members.
Mm-hmm.
And because she still has cancer, right?
Yeah. I mean, and it was, I mean, she was going through it. I mean, she was doing chemo. She was having some other issues and, she had to get a colostomy bag. And, so I was helping to take care of the home. And I mean, we had our own 2 dogs, but she also had 3 dogs of her own. So, I was helping to take care of the dogs in the home when an emergency happened. I would contact one of the brothers and let them know so that they can share it with the rest of the family. But yeah, I mean, I was in the home taking care of the home while she was gone. So, and recovering. And, it was just hard because, they weren't on the same page. And, come to find out later, family history, family trauma, all the, things that I didn't
Isn't
know.
it magical how trauma just comes up and shows its ugly face and it really tries to tear everything apart? So let me ask you this. John's gone.
Yes.
I'm assuming he's somewhere around town, but he's gone. And you're caregiving for your mother-in-law. And what are you thinking? Like, honestly, are you thinking like, what in the heck am I doing here? Should you go back to California and be like, respectfully, screw this. I'm done with this. It's not my responsibility. Because I don't know the answer to that. I'm like, because I would want to be like, I'm done taking care of everybody at this point. I'm going to go take care of myself. I'm going to roll with my kids and my pups and go back to Cali.
Yeah. I mean, I all of those things are probably thoughts that I had. I mean, I think because I had been a caregiver for 8 years, I didn't know anything else to do. I never got to have my graphic design career that I wanted. Mm-hmm. I had been a caregiver for so long and created all these sheets and figuring out how to advocate and how to communicate that it felt like not doing that felt weird, which I think is why I was pushing so hard not pushing hard, but I was agreeing to move to Ohio and help because I knew that I had the tools and the skills to do it, even with a 1-month-old.
Yeah, it's familiar. It's familiar. Yeah. It's comfortable, even though it's a crappy job.
Yeah.
Literally.
It can be, yeah, literally, yeah. But I knew that I had the skills. I knew I could do it. And so I was like, yeah, let's do it. And I knew it wasn't forever. I mean, and that was never the goal. We weren't planning on living in Ohio. I mean, we kind of talked about it for a while once COVID happened, like, oh, maybe this isn't so bad. But the plan was always to go back to California. The plan was not to, live at his parents' house forever with 2 kids and 2 dogs, when he left, I didn't know. I mean, it was very abrupt. There was, I guess, an argument prior to him leaving, but mostly it was just, I don't feel comfortable. So I had actually left first. I was like, I need to take a break. So I left with the girls for a weekend. I came back and he was gone. And then he kind of just never came back. So, I was waiting, I knew, I did some research and understood that I can't leave with 2 kids and be married. I know that I have to get divorced if I want to go anywhere outside of Ohio. So I had to go through the process of getting divorced in Ohio because I knew that if I left and he found out and he wanted to do something, he could call the police on me.
Yeah.
So I knew I had to get a divorce. And so I went through the process and that took about a year-ish to do that. And I was hoping he would call. I was hoping he would say something. I didn't find out that I wasn't a caregiver through him. I found out through the program. They're like, hey, just to let you know, your veteran says you're not a caregiver anymore or not caring for him anymore. He doesn't want your care anymore. So, you got 1 or 2 months left and then we're going to have to
shut
you
down.
Go. And I said, yeah. So, I mean, like those were the ways I found out that things were happening. There were never actual conversations with John about any of that. So, and to me, for him to do that, let me know that like he really doesn't want to do this anymore. Like, again, relationships, you have arguments, you might need to take a break.
Yeah.
But when you start doing actions like that, it kind of felt like, okay, this is real. So there was a realization of like, okay, I'm really not only not his caregiver, which I was already kind of ebbing and flowing through already. That's like, okay, now I'm really not. And then caring for his mother was obviously difficult. But again, rewarding because I knew that I was helping her. I knew I was helping her stay at home. I knew I was giving her an opportunity to
stay at home and be with her dogs. And, she retired during that time. And, she got to go to doctor's appointments, and I couldn't go because I had kids. And of course, COVID was still a big thing at that time. So going to cancer doctor's appointments I couldn't do. And I don't think she wanted me there, but my sheets came in really handy in making sure that she was advocating, that she was being honest. She's an amazingly charming woman, and she is really good at saying everything's fine when it's not.
Yeah.
And she's not the best at always advocating for herself. Obviously because she was doing chemotherapy, she had to really pay attention to her weight. And, we would do protein shakes and all that kind of stuff. And, she would say, oh yeah, I'm doing it. Oh yeah, I'm doing it. And, the weights are not going to lie, so she can say, yes, I'm doing the things, but the weights aren't going to lie. And so, again, having I would give the sheets to her brother, who would take her to the doctor's appointment. So when she would say she would do things, and the doctor would open up the book of the daily tasks that I was writing down, what she was eating, if she was exercising, if she was, she couldn't lie. So, and I don't think she appreciated that, but my intent was obviously not to make her look like a liar. My intent was to make sure that the doctors had the right data to
give her the right treatment. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and then, because of her not wanting to be honest about our relationship or things like that, things were getting weird with us, which is understandable. I'm the outcast. I'm not, I'm not her child. And so once I kind of got the papers that we were officially divorced, which was done by proxy, meaning he wasn't there, I took it upon myself to go home for the holidays and then not come back. So I had to leave everything there.
Wow.
Because I just didn't feel safe. I didn't really have any of my family there. So yeah, it was really tough. But, so, and I think I didn't mention too, during that time of caring for all those people, because at some point I was caring for 5 people, 4 dogs. I had a panic attack. I really lost it. The burnout was really, really bad. And I knew that John knew that. And I don't think he knew how to handle that. He was a really great provider, always a great provider, but I don't think he knew how to handle me when I needed it. I've always been healthy, but at that point I was not. Physically, mentally, I had a cyst on my back. I had to start going to doctor's appointments regularly. And I don't think he knew how to handle that and kind of, I won't say switch roles, but just take on more of my burden in the way that I needed him to. And so, I don't think he can handle it. So that's, I think, kind of the reason why he left. You'll have to ask him. I don't know. But I realized that one of the things that really kept me okay and keep going were those care sheets. It really allowed me to separate my emotions from the facts. I was able to fact check. There could be no arguing when I can show the sheets, right? We can't argue about when you last ate if I wrote it down. We can't argue about why you threw up when I can look at when these things are happening, or why you're dehydrated when you haven't been drinking water.
Yeah.
There could be no arguments when it comes to those things. And I think that when also you're dealing with a big family and they aren't always present, and they come and see your loved one and them not doing well, and then they want to come to you and say, hey, why aren't you doing your job? You could say, look, these are all the things I'm doing. These are all the things I'm seeing. I can't make her eat. I'm not, there's a boundary you have to have as caregivers of letting them do what they want, but also advocating for them. And sometimes that doesn't always work out. So having those sheets is really important, not just for the military world, but also the civilian world when it comes to making sure that things are documented correctly. I remember somebody saying, if you have it written down, if you don't have it written down, it didn't happen. And if you have it written down, it's as good as gold. And I try to live by that, with myself, with my kids. it really does make a difference to have that document. There's no arguing. I have it. You know what I mean? Like, this really did happen, you know?
So I want to say that we'll have, Tara has shared this information with these sheets, which are
They're
amazing.
gold.
Yeah, they're gold, like she said. So we want to make sure
Links in
every
the show notes.
they're going to have links in the show notes. Tara, I know that we're like short on time, but I want to ask, you've had a lot go on with this, like your journey, and it continues to go on. Tell me where you are today.
Yeah, that's a good question.
I
I am still recovering. Definitely. I'm still recovering from the burnout. I've been in fight or flight, I think, for so long that I don't know what it's like to feel calm. And that feels uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And definitely taking care of myself more. And I think those are the big priorities right now. And then obviously doing this, finding other caregivers and helping them avoid what I've experienced, and feeling not validated by the things that they're doing, and having them advocate better for not just their loved ones, but mostly themselves. I think that's who I care about most. And that's why I call myself the caregiver doula. I want to care for the caregivers.
Yeah. You know, I think, because I know we're at question time because we're a little over, but that's okay. You wrote in some information that you sent us. This was so meaningful to me. Two things. The transformation gave me back something we'd lost, which was hope. And with that also came a true awareness of my self-neglect. Even though I was successful as a caregiver, I forgot how to care for myself. And the most vital lesson from my caregiving journey wasn't about how to give better care. It was about the importance of maintaining my own identity and boundaries while caring for others.
Yeah, there's that whole making sure that you put on your face mask before you put on anybody else's, and being the example of what you want to see. It's easy to tell somebody else, make sure you're drinking your water, but if you're not doing the same, how are you setting a good example of what that's supposed to look like?
I love this. I'm so grateful for your story, because that's why I said at the beginning, I mean, nobody expects it to end this way. And the reality is it's just a chapter. And so you've taken this and you have said, I'm going to take back my control. I'm going to take back, this is my form of self-care, and I'm going to help other people, because you are a natural born caregiver. You didn't know it.
I am.
But you are, and you were trained, and you got your stripes, and you've done all the things. And so I want to do a quick lightning round and say, because you say in here, through my caregiving journey, I discovered 3 game-changing strategies that transformed my experience. What are those 3 game-changing strategies?
So my sheets,
Yes.
data-driven organization. I highly believe in that. I feel like if you have the data, if you can see the patterns, you can see if it's medication, you can see if it's, food, it's activities, especially dealing with PTSD and TBI. It's really important to know what the triggers are so that you can either avoid them or handle them a lot better. Another one would be doing energy checks.
Love that.
Energy management. It's really important to see who is filling into you and where you're putting out your energy so that you can better organize that and have better balance. And then the other one is team building, having a big care team, and knowing who they are, having their phone numbers, knowing how they can help you. And it could be the tiniest things. It doesn't have to be major. Sometimes it's just coming over to watch a movie. Sometimes it's helping somebody to mow the lawn. Sometimes it's, it could be bigger, like groceries. But just having a care team who you can talk to about what you're going through, who can help you. And again, a lot of these things are not just on the caregiver, which I think is really important. It's also whom you're caring for. They really need to also play a part in that. You're supposed to be a team. So they need to help advocate for themselves. They need to do their own energy checks. They need to call on their people too, not just the caregiver. So yeah, I think those are both really important for the caregiver too. Yeah.
I'm jumping right to my sister question.
Do it.
Okay, my sister question is a message that you would tell your girls.
Oh,
Because they went through this too.
Yeah. I don't know. A message I would give to my girls.
Because you're so positive. Like, you've come through this. And Natalie, she said,
I don't know.
like, yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, I like a little tip, like something like, you just come through this, but I still think it's definitely not an end. Like, you've taken this and turned it into something.
Yeah, no, I mean, I talked to my girls about, my experience, and obviously we're talking about their father. So I don't know. I hope that they continue to be amazing kids and be caring, but also don't forget about yourself. I mean, I think that's really important in general. So, set your boundaries, and including with me, which they have no problem doing. And I respect it. So I just keep that up.
I love it.
It makes to me, it makes perfect sense. You have girls.
Yeah.
It makes sense
Yeah,
that you have
definitely.
girls. You were meant for girls. Last question.
Hit it.
What is your favorite guilty pleasure? What is the one thing that you do for yourself, just for you, that you just love?
I know that you've asked this question, and I've been thinking about it, because there's really not one thing that I do just for me that doesn't involve everybody else. Like I know. There's there's a matcha Kit Kats. That's probably my guilty pleasure. I don't like sharing them, so I will hide those. Everything else I'm happy to share. Coffee,
Right there.
whatever.
That's
Yeah,
it.
matcha Kit Kats. Yeah.
Matcha Kit Kats. And so Kit
I mean,
Kat,
if you
can-
hide them, that's totally yours. I'm
that,
okay with that.
honestly, I'm not gonna lie to you. That's like the Swiss cake rolls, and in the outside, and I would hide the box from you, Jay,
Why? Why did you have to share
because I
that?
want to eat them all. And I support you. You know what, Tari? Thank you so much for being here with us. This was amazing. Thank you for being so authentic and sharing this, because I know that you had said before, you're like, oh, there's so many great people on here, and what am I going to share, and will it be meaningful? And my answer is yes.
Okay.
You're going to tell your story, and it's going to be exactly what another person needed to hear today.
Yeah, I hope that my story lets people know that they're not alone, and I really hope to help people's relationships. I think that's what it is. I don't want anybody to lose a relationship from caregiving.
Yeah.
Because that's something, I mean, sometimes we lose the people that we care for, but not in this way,
That's exactly
not like
right.
this.
It
So-
wasn't meant to be this way.
No, it shouldn't be. Yeah.
Guys, thanks so much for listening in. Until the next time, we will see you. We will see you then. Until the next time when we confess again. I'm just over here screwing it up. So until the next time when we confess again, we'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.
Well, friends, that's a wrap on this week's confession. Thanks so much for listening in to the podcast. But before you go, please take a moment to leave us a review and tell your friends about the Confession Show. Don't forget, visit our website to sign up for our newsletter, as well as connect with us on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Pinterest, and Twitter. You'll also find the video recording of all our episodes on the Confessions website and our YouTube channel. We'll see you next Tuesday when we come together to confess again. Till then, take care of you. Okay, let's talk disclaimers. We are not medical professionals and are not providing any medical advice. If you have medical questions, we recommend that you talk with a medical professional of your choice. As always, my sisters and I at Confessions of a Reluctant Caregiver have taken care in selecting the speakers, but the opinions of our speakers are theirs alone. The views and opinions stated in this show are solely those of the contributors and not necessarily those of our distributors or hosting company. This podcast is copyrighted and no part can be reproduced without the express written consent of the Sisterhood of Care, LLC. Thank you for listening to the Confessions of a Reluctant Caregiver podcast.